Hi, it's Steph, and I'm at Lowe's, and they have a bunch of new spring inventory. Perennials, annuals, trees, shrubs, and evergreens. So let's go ahead and take a look at the April inventory at Lowe's. There's still some chilly nights, hence the frost cloth, but it's feeling like spring in here, and there are some beautiful new perennials. Look at this. This is a Jacob's ladder, and it's called Touch of Class. This is a Monrovia plant. I have 3 Jacob's ladders in my garden, and I absolutely love them. They have a really beautiful kind of ferny look foliage. My green one looks a little bit more ferny than this one. This one's variegated, which adds even another level of interest. And then they get these tiny little purple blooms in the spring. So a really beautiful plant to add spring interest to the garden. So this one here, let's see how large it gets. It does like shade. And if you put this plant in too much sun, these leaves can start to scorch. So you certainly want to provide it with some shade. If you put it in a part shade location, make sure that if it's getting sun, it's a morning sun, which is a little bit softer than an afternoon sun. So this one here gets to be 14 to 16 inches in height and 16 to 20 inches in width, and it is hardy down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. $10.98 for this perennial, which is the same price as last year for the Monrovia. So that's great to know that the price has not increased over last year. And look at this beautiful heuchera. So vibrant and beautiful. Now this is a great way to add a pop of color to a shady spot in the garden. These in my garden, I have quite a few varieties, not one quite this bright, but look how nice of a contrast this is, even planted alongside a Jacob's ladder. Beautiful color contrast, texture contrast. Now these are mostly grown for foliage, but they do send up bloom spikes at some point throughout the season. If you don't like them, you can cut them off, but the pollinators like them, and I think they look quite pretty. So this here is the Dolce Cherry Truffles by Proven Winners. These are $12.98 for this 2.5 quart container. It is a perennial, which means it will come back each year. And this variety gets to be 26 inches in spacing. So 8 to 10 inches in height and needs 26-inch spacing. So it looks like it spreads wider than it does in height, but very vibrant and beautiful. Aquilegia, also known as columbine, another quintessential spring blooming plant. Now this perennial is wonderful. It has this most beautiful foliage. Look at the foliage here. I love them. The foliage almost looks like a bigger version of a meadow rue or thalictrum to me, but the blooms are so unique. They're dainty and just gorgeous. They come in several colors, different types of blooms. I have some that have very small blooms with multiple layered petals. I have some that look like this. Great. And here is a trend that I've been seeing recently, even at the Home Depot, smaller containers. So these are quart-sized container perennials for $5.98. This is wonderful. It makes them more affordable for gardeners. You can get multiples. Say you wanted to plant a drift. It's much more affordable to buy 3 or 5 at this price point. And the size makes the root ball really easy to plant, which is wonderful. So $5.98. This one here is a Kirigami rose and pink columbine. They have different colors. So this is the rose one, which is beautiful. They also have the blue one, the Kirigami blue, and white. There it is. And then they have this variety here, which is a Kirigami red and white columbine. And this one's also really beautiful. Has this deep rose red color with a creamy center. Really pretty. Now these are part shade plants. They can take some part sun. A morning sun would be best. This is actually a great size plant for a quart-sized container. Look at that. Nice and healthy looking. Now this variety, the Kirigami columbines, get to be 18 to 24 inches in height and in width, and they're very hardy, down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. Some adorable English daisies. Now these are really cute. They're a short stature plant. They remind me very much of, well, they are a daisy, but the foliage reminds me of almost like primrose, the way that it has this big tuft of what looks like lettuce, but then the blooms come up above it. Very cute. Now, even though these are listed as perennial, I have never grown these in my garden. I have used them in containers before, and I don't know what happened to them after that. But let me know if this is something that you plant in your garden and if they return for you as perennial. So these are $8.98. They like part sun and hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And they're very short at only 6 to 10 inches in height and 5 to 6 inches in width, but they come in beautiful shades of red and pinks and even some white. They have a really adorable little pom-pom bloom. And look at these beautiful little carnation plants. These are Dianthus, and this color is the Oscar Pink Purple Dianthus. Now, I purchased these last year to use in my front porch spring planters. I actually love to use perennials in container arrangements because once I'm done with them in the planter, I have a perennial that I can grow in my garden that comes back year after year. And this one is adorable. I love this like bubblegum pink, and it has a little bit of a burgundy center. Very pretty. So this is the Oscar Pink and Purple Dianthus, $8.98 for this container, and it likes full sun and very short. This one's only 8 to 10 inches in height and 6 to 10 inches wide. Makes a nice little grassy tuft with these adorable little blooms. And I've just been told that all of the Lowe's house brand perennial containers in the 2-quart size will be on sale beginning tomorrow, Thursday, April 17th at 2 for $10, which is a great price if you're looking to add some perennials to your garden this season or even to use in containers. This one is beautiful too. Look at that. It's like a bicolor or two-tone. And this one is called Deodar, Magenta, and White Edge Dianthus. This one's a little taller, 10 to 14 inches in height and 10 to 12 inches wide. Hardy down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit and likes full sun. This one has more of a loose kind of habit. You can see the difference. This one's a little bit tighter, more of a little mound, a shorter mound. This one is a little bit taller and looser. Has a really pretty kind of like a silvery gray green foliage. Very pretty. Very easy to deadhead too. So once these blooms are done, you find them like this. When they're done blooming, you just follow the stem down, cut it off, and then it'll keep producing blooms for you. And some more Dianthus, and these are in the Lowe's house brand containers in a quart size for also $5.48. This is amazing. So Home Depot is doing it with their house brand containers. Proven Winners is doing the 1 quarts for a more affordable price point. I believe they're $7.98. Monrovia is doing it for $5.98, and Lowe's is also doing it for $5.48. So this is excellent to see this year. These are a really beautiful fuchsia bloom. That same grassy texture on the foliage. It's called Everlast Lavender Shimmer Dianthus. These like full sun, and it's a mounding perennial. This variety gets 8 to 12 inches in height, 10 to 14 in width, and hardy to a zone 5. And check out this beauty. This is one of my favorite shade perennials. It is Pulmonaria, also known as Lungwort, and it has the most beautiful, interesting foliage. Look at that. It's like a spotted foliage. It is green with these silvery specks. And in the spring, you get these tiny, beautiful blooms in shades of blue and purple and pink. Look at that. You get all 3 colors, which is really interesting, and they're so vibrant in the shade. And once the blooms are done, these leaves get really large. It's a really interesting thing that happens to a lot of these shade perennials. Brunnera does the same thing. It'll get those really beautiful little blue blooms in the spring, and then once they're done blooming, the foliage gets larger. So this one here is the Proven Winners Spot On Pulmonaria. It is a part shade to shade plant. If you have them in too much sun, I've made that mistake, and the leaves can definitely scorch. So if you are going to have 3 to 4 hours of sun, it's best if it's a morning sun that's a bit softer. But otherwise, these do great in a shady spot in the garden. $15.98 for this 1 gallon size. And these are a medium sized plant at 14 to 16 inches in height, and they need 18-inch spacing. Very beautiful. Something else to note about the Proven Winners tags, if you're ever wondering what you can pair your plants with, they usually have a recommendation right here. So it says that this plant, the Pulmonaria, would look wonderful planted alongside ferns, sedges or carex, barrenwort at the medium, coral bells, heuchera, hosta, lugularia, Jacob's ladder, pulmonium, which we just looked at some over there, and primrose. And what an adorable little dainty spring bloomer. This is called saxifrage, which is really fun to say. And just look at it. It's got such pretty shades of rose. And even as they fade, they look like a light pink with almost hints of white. Look at that. So pretty. I'm actually going to grab 2 of these today to use in some of my spring containers, and then I will plant them out in the garden. I have the perfect spot picked out for them. But they are really pretty. They're also in these smaller quart-sized containers for $5.98. This one's called the Turon Pink Saxifrage. It likes part sun. And let's see how big it gets. Very short. I would say 8 to 10. Oh, it says 4 to 6 inches in height, 4 to 8 inches in height, 6 to 12 in width. Hardy down to a -10 degrees Fahrenheit. And look at that, there's still lots of bloom buds in there. And another adorable little perennial. This is Armeria, also known as Thrift or Sea Thrift. And a couple of years ago, I made a video where I planted a drift of Thrift, where I planted several of these up at the top of my driveway. And I really love them. What's great about these is that they're low growing. They have these adorable little sphere or ball-shaped blooms atop this wiry stem and this really neat, tidy little mound of grass. They are tolerant to things like roach salt. So because I have them planted at the top of our driveway, we sometimes get snow here in the Northeast, and when the plows come through and clean and put down salt, they're not affected by that. They also bloom for a super long time. So they bloom in spring, summer, and fall. And the way to keep them blooming is once you have a spent bloom, so a bloom like this or like this that might be done and not looking its best, just follow the stem all the way down, cut it off, and there is no shortage of blooms coming up right behind them. Look at that. So many more blooms. I find them deer and rabbit resistant, nothing touches them, and they're very drought tolerant. In fact, they don't like to sit in too much moisture. So that is the fastest way to kill them, is to give them too much water. So they can deal with salt, deer and rabbit resistant, they don't like a lot of water, and they're drought tolerant, and they bloom for a long time. So all the reasons to add this little perennial to your garden. So this one here is the Dreameria Daydream Thrift by Monrovia. These are quart size for $5.98. They like full sun, they are perennial, and low growing, only 10 to 12 inches in height and 10 to 12 inches in width. Bloom spring, summer, and fall, and hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And look at these beautiful little tufted plants with these little flowers that look like roses. These are primula or primrose, and they have these beautiful burgundy ones. And these here on the side of them, which are a golden center with like a coral on the edges. Stunning. Now, primrose is a spring bloomer. I actually purchased some the last time I was here at Lowe's to use in some of my spring containers on my front porch. And they are perennial, so they come back year after year. This one here in the burgundy red color is called Ballerina Valentine Primrose. That's actually really appropriate because it does look to me like red roses, right? And these are really short in stature. They like part sun, perennial, $10.98 for these, only 6 to 12 inches in height and 6 to 12 inches in width. Blooms in spring, hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one here is the Ballerina Nectarine Primrose. Oh, this one's gorgeous. $10.98, perennial, part sun, same stats, and looks about the same size, 6 to 12 inches in height, 6 to 12 inches in width, and negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit for hardiness. Look at this wild looking Asiatic lily. Isn't that so interesting? Has like the darkest like burgundy in the center that almost looks black with these splashes of gold on the tips. That is really cool. And wait until you see the name of it. Tiny, massive Asiatic lily. That's like jumbo shrimp, right? An oxymoron. So fun. And this is a full sun perennial, $10.98 for these. And let's see how big they get. 12 inches in height and 12 inches in width. So nice and compact. And negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, blooms in summer. I have Asiatic lilies in my garden. I also have Oriental lilies like the stargazers. These will bloom first, the Asiatic type lilies, and then the stargazers go next. But something that I notice is that I do have to protect my buds from deer because they like to come through and chomp them, and then you won't get any pretty blooms. So if you deal with deer and you want to try to grow lilies, make sure that you spray a deer and rabbit repellent on the buds so that you can enjoy their blooms. All of these fun and interesting conifers that they just received here at Lowe's. Some real pretty statement evergreens for the garden. Now these here are trained in a spiral topiary. They will eventually grow outward and get really bushy and misshapen. So in order for you to keep this nice shape, you do have to go through and trim them. Anytime that you see something getting a little bushy or a little wild, growing where it's not supposed to, just cut that off so that they can maintain this really cool interest. And you usually pay more for these, so you want to make sure that you don't let them just turn into a regular tree again, right? So they have some in the Monrovia containers, and they have some as well in the Lowe's house brand containers. So let's go ahead and see how much these spiral arborvitae topiaries are. So these are emerald green arborvitae topiary spirals for $119. They also have this one here that is the 3 balls. See that? There's a ball on top in the center and at the bottom, and that is also, I believe, the same price. Let's take a look. Those are $109. Probably a little less work to create the ball topiary versus the spiral. And then they also have these really beautiful evergreens. This one looks like a type of mugo pine. Look at that. Pinus mugo emerald dwarf. Typically, when you see things on a standard like this, they're going to be a little more expensive because you can think about the amount of time that it's taken a nursery or greenhouse to grow this really large plant and to trim it all up. But they are so beautiful and really provide a lot of interest in the garden. I'm a big fan of conifers because living here in a colder climate in the Northeast, it really does help to have interest in your garden when all of your perennials go dormant for the winter. You'll still have something beautiful to look at. So $169 for this, and it likes full sun. Most conifers are full sun plants. There's only a couple of green shrubs or evergreens that can take part shade. Boxwood is one of them. Look at this beautiful blue beauty here. This is a type of spruce glauca. See if I can get the tag for you, but look how beautiful this blue color is. I have one of these in my garden as well on a standard form. It does fill out and get more globe shaped or rounder with time. So again, if you want to keep it nice and compact, you just have to go through and prune it back in the spring once it starts pushing out its new growth. $169 for this one, which is actually a great price for a globe spruce on a standard. Such beautiful color. 6+ hours of full sun per day, and it likes semi-moist but well-draining soil, and it says that it needs 8-foot spacing. Average size is as trained because anytime that you have a plant that's either a weeper or that's trained in a standard form, it's going to depend on the gardener to go through and shape it up to maintain its size and shape. Look at this. A pine green penguin. I'm telling you, there are some really interesting plants here at Lowe's for early on in the season. I mentioned when I was at the Home Depot that once in a while they get these really cool gems. We found some yesterday. I just posted that video a couple of days ago. You can check that out on my channel. And Lowe's is doing that as well. And you always get the best pick earlier on in the season when they bring all their new inventory in. So this one here is a green penguin pine. It's also $169. And from far away, it almost looks like an umbrella pine. Just a little more fine in texture. This one gets to be 18 to 20 inches in height and 15 inches in width. So this is more like a pyramidal shape, Christmas tree shape type plant. So it will need some space. So give it some room in the garden. Very hardy, down to a zone 4. And it is deer resistant. I find that they don't touch the pines in my garden. I have some Mugo pines and they leave them alone, which is great. $169 on this one. And then this is one that I did see here last year and I was super excited about it because I have one in my garden. This is an Abby's Poosh. And what's great about this conifer is that in the spring, all of these old pine cones will fall off and they will start pushing out some new ones, which you can already see them forming here, but they are a bright red. Look at that. There's actually one right here. Look how beautiful that is. Now they're still small. These are going to get much bigger, but you can kind of already see the color starting. So it provides a lot of interest and I love it. So $169 for this Abby's Poosh on a standard. You can see that it's been limbed up and trained like a tree. I believe this is another one as well. Yes. Here's another beauty. This is the Spruce Pungens globosa. Now this one does not look like it's on a standard. It looks like it's just going to be a shrub and they do have a round shape. $169 for this one. Home Depot does have them for $129. So if you have one near you and you're interested in one of these, their price is a little bit better. The size is as trained because you can prune on it. It has a pretty slow growth rate, which is great, and hardy down to a zone 3 or -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And these shrubs, any evergreen that you see that has a blue or golden color will have the best color in full sun. And this one here has a pyramidal shape as well. It's a Spruce Abby's Arizonica glauca compacta. $169 for this one. Looks like a Christmas tree and it gets to be 50 feet in height and 25 to 30 feet in width. Definitely give this one some space. Deer resistant, beautiful blue color. I have a story about one of these. I planted a similar tree, a Colorado blue spruce 12 years ago. Planted it too close to my house because it was called a baby blue eyes. It was not a baby nor a dwarf and it got too big and I had to cut it down. I also posted that video on my channel recently. It was very sad because it was such a beautiful tree. So proceed with caution, learn from me. Make sure you give these large evergreens lots of space to grow to their full potential. And some really cool Monrovia trees and shrubs. Just wait until I show you some of these. A coral bark Japanese maple, also known as a sango kaku. I'm a huge fan of Japanese maples. I think they're gorgeous trees, bring a lot of interest to the landscape, and this is a real beauty. It has the most beautiful and interesting coral red bark. You can see that there. And it gets these really pretty chartreuse green leaves the rest of the year. Right now it'll leaf out with all of these interesting colors, then it goes a bit green, and in the winter when it has no leaves, you still get a lot of beauty from this coral bark. And Japanese maples in general are part shade trees. They prefer morning sun, afternoon shade, and this one here is a medium-sized tree. Most of them are medium-sized trees, only getting to be about 15 to 20 feet tall and wide. And this variety is hardy in zones 5 through 8 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. A real beauty for $169, which actually is a good price for a Japanese maple. This looks to be about a 5-gallon container. Look at this, a really sought after dogwood, the Venus dogwood. It has really large and dramatic blooms. Beautiful, $119 for this one. It is all budded up. It's a medium-sized tree getting to be, let's say, it says about 15 to 20 feet tall and wide, hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it blooms late spring through early summer. Look at this, all budded up. And it's $119. Now, dogwoods are pretty slow growing, but this one, I think because of the size of the blooms, would be worth waiting for. So pretty. And right behind it, it's hard to get to, but they have this beautiful blue-green evergreen. This is a blue atlas cedar. I know it because I have one. Let's see. Yes, a blue atlas cedar. These get very large. I have some that are trained in a serpentine shape, like an S shape, so they stay pretty compact, and we can trim on them very easily. But this one gets to be 40 to 60 feet in height and 30 to 40 feet in width or larger with age. Hardy in zone 6 through 9 or down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Gorgeous. And that is $124. Look at that coloring. So pretty. Here's another interesting beauty. It's a weeper, and this is a feeling blue deodar cedar. So it's going to have more of a blue coloring to it. The new tips are coming out in chartreuse, and then it'll get a little bit more of a bluish green tint. Now, it is a weeper. Again, the size is going to grow as trained. So depending how much you want it to go up, you would stake it upwards. And then once you decide you don't want it to go up in height anymore, you can just kind of leave it alone and it'll start weeping downward. And the feeling blue deodar cedar says that it likes full sun, hardy in zones 6 through 9, hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, cedars do like a well-draining soil, so even they're pretty drought tolerant after they're established. That usually means after a couple of years of regularly watering them and so forth, you can kind of back off on watering and they'll be just fine. But if you do go through periods of drought or lack of rain, it'd be good to give them a little bit of a drink. $139 for this one. Another really beautiful Japanese maple. This is what they call the lace leaf Japanese maples because they have more of a filigree type foliage. And this one is the waterfall Japanese maple. So it has a weeping habit. It's going to weep downward. This would be beautiful to plant on the edge of, say, a little pond or water feature. Very pretty. Green foliage. You can see the shape of it there. Slow growing, reaches 8 to 10 feet tall and 10 to 12 feet wide over time in its natural form, hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or zone 5 through 8. $169 on that one as well. This is another beauty, the black tulip magnolia. Look at that, $229 for this one. But you can see it's pretty mature tree because it has a good sized caliper here. Pretty compact tree, moderate growing, reaches 15 to 20 feet in height and 6 to 10 feet in width. And that is $229, but what a beautiful bloom. I really love magnolias, and I have 3 in my garden at this point. I would add more if I could. And once I find the space, that might happen. So you have some of these, the white star magnolias. I have a Dr. Merrill. They bloom first. In fact, you can see that this one is called Royal Star, and it's already bloomed. They have such wonderful fragrant blooms. I just love the scent on them. And then once these are done, then the tulip style magnolias come into bloom. Things like the Jane and the Anne and that black one, that black tulip that we just saw. They're stunning. So this one is $79. This Royal Star magnolia gets to be 10 to 15 feet in height and 10 to 12 feet in width, hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit and hardy in zones 4 through 9. Cuba. Now this is generally a tropical plant. We're here in a zone 6B, 7A, so I'm not sure that this would be real hardy for us. It says hardy in zone 6 through 10, so maybe it is in a protected spot, but I think it might be a little risky. But let me know if you've grown this before in a colder climate. And it says that it gets 4 to 6 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide, so that actually is a great size. For this foliage, it'll make quite an impact. Very pretty. And this is $79 for that Monrovia. It's in a 5-gallon container. And oh my goodness, one of my favorite spring bloomers, the peony. Look at this foliage. So pretty. It is loaded with blooms. This is pretty upright, so this might be an Ito peony. Let's check that out. Oh yeah, Julia Rose. I actually do have this one. I grew it from a bare root that I bought from Longfield Gardens. And so I've only gotten a couple of blooms off of it so far, but maybe this year I'll get a few more. So this is a showy bloom, full part sun on peonies. And let's see how big it gets. Only 36 inches, I think. Let's see, 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Hardy in zones 4 through 9 or down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It likes a moist, well-draining soil, part sun. And the great thing about the Ito peonies is that they are really sturdy. They don't require staking like the herbaceous peonies. So these are a cross between the tree peony and the herbaceous peony, and they made the Ito. And really nice and sturdy, you can see that. Nice and upright. This one isn't leafed out yet, but this is a really pretty azalea. Look how large these buds are. So any day now, azaleas are spring bloomers. This is the Cannon's double azalea. I saw this in bloom here last year. It is stunning. $39.98 for this shrub. And it is hardy in zones 5 through 9 down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Moderate growing, reaches 6 feet tall, 4 feet wide. So pretty. And azaleas, like rhododendrons, are an understory shrub. They like part sun locations. So under the canopy of deciduous trees where they'll get some sun to set bloom over the winter months when the trees above are bare, but then they will get some shade in the hottest part of the season in late spring and summer once those trees fill out. And some yew. Now, what's great about these is that these are the Japanese plum yew. Now, yew has such a nice, soft texture. It looks like it would be spiky, but it's not. It's nice and soft. These make a great hedging type plant, have a nice vertical upright growth habit. And there is the Taxus densiformis, which is the traditional yew. Those are not very deer resistant, but the Japanese plum yew is more deer resistant. So that would be something important to know if you want to grow yew and that's a concern for you. So this here is $52.98 for this shrub, and the upright Japanese plum yew slowly forms a broad upright shrub reaching 10 feet tall and 6 to 8 feet wide, and it is hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 6 through 9. It's also a part sun shrub, so it likes 3 to 6 hours of morning sun, which is wonderful because a lot of times I'll get viewers that ask me about shrubs for part sun or shade. Check out how vibrant this mugo pine is. I don't have a filter on. This is just how bright it is. It is gorgeous. This is a dwarf shrub called the Karsten's Winter Gold Mugo Pine. These are so pretty. So if you have a pine or mugo pine, any kind of pine that sends up these candles in the spring, this is how you would size control that shrub. You would just go through and prune off all of the candles. They call it candle pruning or tip pruning, and that will size control it. So these are beautiful. And it gets to be 2 to 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide in 10 years. It's classified as a dwarf, which means that not only is it compact, dwarf just typically refers to its growth rate. So it will have a slower growth rate. And pines are also super winter hardy. Look at this, down to negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit or down to a zone 2. So 2 to 7 is the hardiness zone on these. Wintergreens or evergreens do much better in colder climates than they would in a warm climate. And another beauty, the Japanese pyrus. But this one is variegated, which is so cool. So this is an evergreen shrub, so you get interest all year round with the foliage, and this one being variegated gives you even another level of interest. And then in very early spring, you get these really beautiful cascading bell-shaped blooms. Isn't that so pretty? And the new growth usually has some red to it, and you can see that right here with some new growth. So I really love Japanese pyrus. I have 2 of them in my garden. They come in different sizes. Some get larger than others. This one looks like it's going to be a more compact variety from the size on the tag here. This is called the variegated Japanese pyrus. And it gets to be slow growth rate, 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. So nice medium-sized shrub, hardy in zones 6 through 8 or down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It blooms in early spring. It likes soil that is moist but well draining. Now, I will tell you that these also like acidic acidic soil because I did go ahead and do some research because one of mine wasn't blooming and I didn't know why. These are kind of sensitive to cold, similar in the way that a macrophylla type hydrangea or big leaf hydrangea would be. So if you get a few days of really deep freezing temperatures, they can risk frosting off the blooms for that year. So I think that's what happened to one of mine and the reason it didn't bloom that year. So it's either that the soil is not acidic enough or that the bloom buds get zapped by really cold temperatures. So if you have a Japanese Pyrrhus and you're wondering why it didn't bloom, there, hopefully that information is helpful to you. But this one is a real beautiful one by Monrovia and it is $46.98. Some beautiful rhododendrons by Proven Winners. This is the Dandy Man color wheel and it has a very pretty pink bloom. But look at the size of these buds. They are huge. Look at this. So many buds, which means this is really going to put on the bloom show. Rhododendrons are an understory shrub. They like to be under the canopy of deciduous trees where they'll get protected once those trees fill out and offer them some shade during the spring and summer. But they are really pretty. I find that their leaves are pretty deer resistant, but they do like to eat the buds. So especially once they start swelling like this, they're really tasty to the deer. So you have to spray them with some kind of repellent. What's really fun about this Dandy Man color wheel is that it actually goes through a color wheel. It changes color. So there's never a dull moment with the Dandy Man color wheel. It starts red, opens to deep pink, and finally turns bright white like you see in the photo there. So beautiful. And this one gets to be 4 to 8 feet tall and wide, but in general, rhododendrons are really slow growing evergreen shrub. It's hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. And these here are in a number, it looks like a 2 or a 3, a 2-gallon container for $32.98. And a quintessential spring blooming shrub, the lilac. Look at these beautiful blooms. So pretty. And what I also love about lilacs is not only are they very fragrant, but many of them, their foliage will also turn burgundy in the fall, which offers another layer of interest with some fall color. Now, these are pretty good sized clusters of blooms here. Let's see which variety this is. This is a Monrovia plant, and it is the Miss Kim Korean lilac, which I actually have in my garden. I don't find the Miss Kim as fragrant of a lilac as some of the other varieties, but if you have one, let me know your thoughts. It likes full or part sun. It stays compact. It says it has an exceptional fragrance, so maybe my nose is stuffy. I don't know. And $49.98 for this shrub. And it says that it's hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, in terms of the size, you're going to find mixed information depending on the source. The tag that I purchased my plant with said that it would get 5 to 6 feet tall and wide. This one says that it gets 6 to 8 feet tall and wide or more with age. So it can vary a little bit in terms of size, but it sounds as though it's a medium size lilac. But they have one on the side of it that is a more compact lilac, and this one is all budded up but hasn't bloomed yet. And this one is called the Little Darling, also a Monrovia shrub, $49.98 for this one. And it is reblooming, which is something that is happening a lot more with the new varieties of lilacs, is that they're making reblooming varieties, which is wonderful. You'll get an initial really big flush in the spring, and then towards the end of summer, beginning of fall, you'll get some sporadic reblooming. So this one here is hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it says it reaches 4 feet tall and wide. So if you have a more compact or smaller garden, or you just want to tuck a shrub in a spot, this one is a more appropriate size to do that. It likes full sun, and again, $49.98. I will tell you that this one smells amazing, and look how beautiful these blooms are. It almost looks like the blooms on my Korean spice viburnum, but this is actually a Daphne. Look at that, Eternal Fragrance Daphne, $54.98 for this one. And how big does it get? It says 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, zones 6 through 9 or down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. Let soil dry a bit between watering. I don't have any experience with a Daphne, but it is beautiful. So pretty. Look at that. Really cool find. Look at this beautiful variegated English holly. Now, I have a variegated false holly in my garden. It's an osmanthus called a goshiki, and it's really pretty. But this is an actual English holly, or an ilex, and it's variegated, which provides a lot of winter interest. Now, this variety here is, let's see, the Gold Coast English holly. It's a full or part sun plant, and it tells you that it's the male pollinizer. And why that's important is because with hollies that bear berries, the female bears the berries, but you need to have a male pollinizer around in order for that to occur. So typically, when you buy a holly, it will tell you if it's a male or a female variety, so you know what you're dealing with and whether you should expect berries. So this is $44.98, and it says that it is small, toothy-edged gold leaves, no berries on this male form, but a pollinizer for other female English holly varieties. And it gets to be, let's see, 4 to 6 feet tall and wide and hardy down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit or zone 6 through 9. There's also quite a selection of lilacs in the Lowe's house brand containers here. This one here is a French lilac, which I hope to add to my garden at some point once I find the perfect spot. It is the mange lilac. And what's great about this is that it has really large bloom panicles, up to 9 inches in length and loaded with little flowers and blooms. This one gets to be 10 to 12 feet in height and 10 to 12 feet in spacing, hardy down to zone 3 or -30 degrees Fahrenheit. $34.98 for this beautiful lilac. The mange lilac grows to be 10 to 12 feet in height and 10 to 12 feet in width. So it's a good size, and down to a zone 3 or -30 degrees in hardiness. Here's another type of lilac, and this one's already sending out some bloom buds. And this one is called the James McFarlane lilac, which is a pink lilac. And is so cool. It's also non-suckering, which means it won't send out side shoots or suckers that will continue to make the shrub wider and wider. And it's $34.98. It gets to be 10 feet in height, 6 feet in width, and it's very hardy. Look at that, down to a zone 2 or -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me tell you something, Monrovia really brought it with these really beautiful shrubs this season. Lowe's usually carries Monrovia, Home Depot does not. They typically carry more proven winners. So today we're seeing a whole lot of Monrovia shrubs here at Lowe's because they must have just gotten a fresh spring shipment. But this one is a beautiful spreading Japanese yew. So it grows more in a horizontal kind of habit versus the other yews that we saw right there, which grow more vertically. Look at all this beautiful color and texture. Can you even? I love this so much. So this one here is a little bit pricey at $79, but you know that you're getting a really interesting specimen plant here. And it gets to be 8 to 10 feet wide and only 2 to 3 feet tall. So this is definitely a horizontal growing plant, may be a great foundation type plant, hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit or zones 4 through 7. It likes part to full sun. Look at all that beautiful new fresh growth on these tips. So pretty. Another really pretty conifer. This is the Feeling Sunny Deodar cedar and also has really beautiful golden color on this. I really love the addition of golden evergreens into the garden because it makes a beautiful contrast with all of the green that we normally see. It really pops and stands out. So this cedar here is $109 and it grows in a pyramidal shape. It gets to be 12 to 15 feet tall and 8 feet wide or taller with age. Hardy in zone 7 through 9, down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a plant that I came across for the first time last year. It's called leopard's bane. Yes, Little Leo leopard's bane. It's a part sun plant, $8.98 for this one. Let's see how big it gets. 2 feet high by 1 foot wide and hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. From far away, I thought it was some kind of tick seed, but it's like a little like multi-petaled daisy looking flower. Very pretty. I like these soft yellows. They coordinate so nicely with colors like pink, purple, and white. You can see that bright pink behind it. Another one of my favorite spring blooming perennials, Candy Tuft or Iberis. I added some of these to my garden last season after using them in a container for the spring, and I absolutely love them. Now, these are a little further ahead than the ones in my garden because they came from a greenhouse somewhere, which is probably warmer than what we have here right now in my zone 6B7A. But mine have just started to green up and have a bunch of little buds just like that. So they should be blooming in the next few weeks, and I love these. Such a beautiful little white plant with so many blooms. It has serious flower power. They're nice and tidy and grow in a little mound and not too big. So let's see here. 12 inches in height, 18 inches in width, and hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And they like full sun. And the annual flats are in. Look at this. They have marigolds and petunias, which petunias can actually take quite a bit of cool weather. I wouldn't say freezing temperatures, but definitely cold. And look at all the beautiful colors. They have that really vibrant purple. They have white, this fuchsia pink, and this one, which is really pretty. It's like a salmon pink with red veining in the throat. $3.98 for an 8-pack of these petunia annuals. And some of the proven winners annuals have started to roll in. These are some spring or cool weather annuals. And here they have some Nemesia, which has a really pretty, dainty lavender kind of pink bloom. This one here is called Aromints Pink, Nemesia fructans, and it gets to be 10 to 18 inches in height, and it likes full to part sun. Their petunias are in also, and this one here is the Picasso in Purple Petunia. Look how pretty that is. Really pretty fuchsia throat with some green on the edges. And it is $5.98 for this 4-inch can and 6 to 12 inches in size on this one. Petunias like fertilizer. And if they start getting a little bit leggy throughout the season, you can just cut them right back and they will start to flush out again and get nice and bushy. This is a real pretty one. Look at this. It is called the Coral Sun Calibrachoa. It gets to be 6 to 12 inches in height and $5.98 for this 4-inch can. And some white knight lobellaria, also known as sweet alyssum. And these are really pretty spring bloomers. They're very cool tolerant. They actually smell like honey, and you get loads and loads of these little clusters of dainty white blooms. These are all budded up and getting ready to bloom. And some osteospermum, which I learned last season likes cooler temperatures. I had planted some around Memorial Day weekend, and it bloomed really well towards the tail end of the spring, but as soon as the summer heat kicked in, it kind of petered out on me, and then it picked up again towards the end of the summer, beginning of fall. So this is a really great annual for cool temperatures of the early spring and late summer, early fall. And these here are $18.98. It looks like there's 3 plants in this container, so you could certainly divide it out if you wanted to. It's a really pretty purple violet color. Angiospermum is also known as African daisies. Speaking of daisies, here's another cool weather annual, and it is the Gerbera daisy. Now, it might do well in the summer, perhaps if you keep it in a part shade location, but look how beautiful and vibrant these colors are. You have some fuchsia blooms and some orange ones, as well as yellow and red. And each one of these planters has a mix of blooms in them, and they are $22.98, and it looks like maybe an 8 to 10 inch planter. Also have some containers of geraniums, and these are about 8 to 10 inches as well, and they're very pretty. The foliage on geraniums is also gorgeous. Look at that. And these are, let's see how much, $22.98, and they have coral, that vibrant orchid kind of purple color. They have some of the traditional red ones as well. Ranunculus, which look like tissue paper flowers. Look at all of these beautiful layers on this plant. So many petals. It's a pretty orange one. It almost looks red on camera. Yellow, and this pink one. These are also cool weather annuals. I'm growing some from some corms in a package that I bought from Home Depot. They're looking really nice. No blooms yet, just foliage. But we'll see what they look like. So $16.98 for these little 10-inch, no, maybe an 8-inch whiskey barrel planter. Lots of buds on these, but very pretty cool weather annuals. And the Boston ferns have shown up. Now, it is still a little bit unpredictable in terms of the weather because we're still getting some really cool nights, and Boston ferns are a warm weather annual. So if you are going to get cold weather and you purchase some of these, I would recommend bringing them into a basement or into a garage to protect them until that frosty weather is gone. These are also a part shade to shade loving plant. If you want to grow a fern for a beautiful foliage accent annual plant, and you have a lot of sun, you can go for something like the Kimberly fern, which can take more sun. But the Boston ferns definitely want more of a part shade location, but such gorgeous plants. I get them every year to hang on my patio, and I just love them. So these here are $16.98 in these hanging baskets, and they are non-hardy, below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. They also like moisture, so give them lots of water to keep them happy. Water them. I water mine probably about once a day in the heat of the summer. It's still a little bit early for the Boston ferns, but if you can hold off a little bit, usually they go on sale. I think last year I paid like 2 for $24, which is a really great price. but currently they are $16.98. Look at this cool texture plant. This is an evergold Japanese sedge. Offers a lot of texture and movement to a planting bed. I really like mixing this in containers with other perennials and even in planting beds. Look at that. So pretty. It is a part sun plant. It's $9.98 for this ornamental grass, and this is a more low growing one. Let's check out the size on it. 16 inches in height, 16 inches in width. Hardy to a zone 5 or -10 degrees Fahrenheit. And lots of options when it comes to creeping phlox. They have lavender, which I have this beautiful color in my own garden, and I really love it. They also have the white with the pink eye and the pink varieties. Now this is a wonderful ground cover style phlox. So the creeping phlox is a ground cover. It is low growing, it blooms in early spring, and it is deer resistant in my garden. It's kind of mound-like and forms sort of a carpet. Gets very wide, so over time it makes them really easy to divide. They are deer resistant. They do not touch them in my garden, and they like full sun. I have them interplanted with some daffodils. So right now my daffodils are blooming. My phlox is starting to green up. And so just about the time where the daffodils are done, my phlox will start blooming, and it looks really pretty. So this one here likes full sun, like we talked about. It's a trailing perennial. They look really nice growing on, say, a rock wall or over a retaining wall. $8.98 for these, and they're hardy down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit or a zone 2. And check out these really large planters that they have here. They're 30 inches, and you can certainly take a bath in them. They do have a drain hole, and I felt how heavy they were. They initially look like they could be concrete, but they're some kind of fiberglass material because they are movable. But these would be excellent to plant an evergreen or a large tree in, kind of off-white one. Almost looks like it has an aged finish on it. Very cool. They would certainly make an impact at $1.99 a piece. And here's a deer and rabbit repellent that I use very frequently in my garden. It's the Liquid Fence Deer and Rabbit. This is a pre-mixed bottle for $14.98. I usually buy this big one for $24.98 because I have a lot of area to cover. So you just want to shake it well and then apply it. And you do need to reapply it after really heavy rains. But I find that if I do this every 7 to 10 days, usually the deer and rabbit will leave my plants alone. Well, that brings us to the end of the April inventory here at Lowe's. I hope you've enjoyed checking out what my store has in stock, and I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.